Greeted the pocket, top rabbit out the stove.
It's Filthy Frank, motherfucker. It's Filthy Frank, bitch. Red Bull gives you wings.
Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma says the lockdown regulations are not enforced to punish people, but instead to save lives. Addressing members of the Portfolio Committee, she explained that it is widely known that there are many negative effects of alcohol consumption, including violent crimes. South Africans have been complaining about government's decision to ban the sale of alcohol and cigarettes during the nationwide lockdown, pleading for a review of the regulation. However, the minister says if this were to be done, there would be no point to the lockdown. But even worse, medical workers would have to deal with crimes related to alcohol consumption instead of COVID-19.
And those emergency cases will also need the same beds that we are preparing for COVID-19.
She says that not being able to purchase alcohol is a small sacrifice in the face of other compromises which are being made by citizens in the country. Theto Mahlakwana, Eyewitness News, Johannesburg.
Meanwhile, the Fair Trade Independent Tobacco Association says it's been left with no choice but to take government to court after failed attempts to negotiate with government. The group is approaching the courts after government failed to respond to its demands to lift the ban on the sale of tobacco. They say tobacco has not been explicitly listed as an item that should not be sold during the national lockdown to curb the spread of COVID-19. Khomutso Modise reports.
The Fair Trade Independent Tobacco Association says its decision to take legal action against government was not an easy one to come to. Spokesperson Snenhlanhla Mnguni.
We had over the course of 3 weeks attempted to engage with government and had been given some form of runaround. We ultimately elected then to take this step, which is admittedly drastic, but we felt that we had no further alternative.
He says they believe cigarettes fall under basic goods as listed in the regulations.
And further, even if it were not, we want to declare that government's application of these regulations is irrational and or unconstitutional in that there's an arbitrary sort of discrimination on certain goods.
The group says it's finalizing its court papers and will serve government tomorrow morning. Khomutso Modise, Eyewitness News.
The Institute for Economic Justice has suggested that South Africa needs 500 billion rand to deal with the impact of COVID-19. With the country's economy already plummeting, President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to announce how government will tackle the effects of the virus on the country's socio-economic climate. During the lockdown, the country has seen some communities like Alexandra and Mitchell's Plain demanding food parcels. Non-essential businesses have closed shop and are now depending on the 41 billion rand committed by government towards relief measures. Sfiso Zulu has more.
The Institute for Economic Justice has suggested government needs to explore steps such as increasing the child support grant and extend free basic services like access to water and adequate healthcare to vulnerable communities. Many South Africans have been restricted to non-essential movements for almost 3 weeks now, resulting in massive job losses due to limited economic activity. The Institute's Neil Coleman says government has room to explore ideas of where more money can be obtained.
We've got massive pension funds worth several trillion. There's development finance institutions. There's assets in the Reserve Bank. So in a crisis like this, what you do is you mobilize all those domestic assets.
It remains to be seen just how far government's socio-economic recovery plan will be able to go to help the country get back on its feet once the pandemic is under control. Sviso Zulu, Eyewitness News.
The higher education and training sector says the academic calendar may extend to 2021 due to the impact of the coronavirus. Minister Blade Nzimande, together with others in the sector today, briefed Parliament's Higher Education Portfolio Committee on plans to rescue the 2020 academic year. Tando Kubeka reports.
The Higher Education Department says further delays to the academic calendar due to the COVID-19 pandemic could also impact on the completion of the 2021 academic year. The sector says it's working with the Basic Education Department to reorganize this year's academic calendar. Deputy Director General Diane Parker says plans are also underway to resume contact learning when the lockdown is lifted.
Is to ensure, firstly, that there is proper environmental cleaning of all campuses and residences, and that's happening on campus sites.
But for now, the Higher Education Department says it's prioritizing a return to learning and teaching through primary online and remote methodologies from next month. Thando Kubeka, Eyewitness News.
And there's been mixed reaction to Ghana's reopening after a 3-week lockdown to ward off the COVID-19 pandemic. President Nana Akufo-Addo says the relaxation of the stay home will be tailored, adding that it was doing enormous harm to the country's poor. Jean-Jacques Cornish reports.
The Ghanaian cities of Accra and Kumasi opened at the same time as cities in Germany, Denmark and India. There are still restrictions in the West African state. Buses and taxis have to carry a minimum number of passengers and stores have to ensure social distancing. Many Ghanaians say it's asking too much of the police to ensure these are obeyed. Ghana's tested 68,000 people and found 1,042 confirmed cases of COVID-19. The virus has killed 9 people. Jean-Jacques Cornish, Eyewitness News.
Gold is trading at $1,682.71 an ounce. The rand's at 18.98 to the dollar, 23.28 to the pound, 20.60 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $19.98 a barrel.
In your sport, Protea bowling coach Charles Langeveld feels his players are improving. The ICC to meet and discuss the future of the men's T20 Cricket World Cup. And Arsenal become the first team in the English Premier League to cut players and managing staff salaries.
A fine Wednesday in store for Gauteng, becoming partly cloudy later on. Johannesburg dropping to an overnight low of 11, reaching a high of 23 degrees. Pretoria 12 and 25, Vereeniging 10 and 23. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. Cooperative Governance Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma says lifting the ban on alcohol and cigarette sales will undermine the essence of the lockdown completely.
Eyewitness News. In touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.mobi.
What you need to know about the coronavirus.
On the 702 app.
On 702.co.za.
And on 702.
702 Afternoon Drive.
With Joe and Joseph.
Live.
Online.
Smartphones.
DSTV.
And 92.7.
And 106 FM.
8 minutes past.
Custodians of flow. The most unpredictable show on TV is back.
BBC World Service. Story. I'm Alan Dean. Coming up on the BBC World Service, stories from a world in lockdown. I've been talking to people around the globe, coming to terms with the fact that things are on hold. Lucia in Mexico, whose search for a missing son has come to a standstill.
It breaks my heart that something so important is suddenly pushed back.
Captain Jens, crossing the world's oceans, uncertain when you will next set foot on land.
There's no day at sea where you're not looking on the calendar and thinking, okay, 10 days left, 8 days left, 5 days left. Now, that is gone at the moment.
And Shell in the Philippines, where armed soldiers patrol the streets.
It's really quiet, and I don't know if you're gonna call it peaceful.
Join me for Don't Log Off after the news.
BBC News, I'm John Shea. The UN's World Food Programme has issued a dramatic warning that the coronavirus pandemic could almost double the number of people worldwide suffering from acute hunger. It says the total number suffering from hunger could leap to more than 250 million. Most of those at risk are in a small number of countries afflicted by conflict, economic crisis and climate change. The head of the WFP, David Beasley, spoke to an online meeting of the UN Security Council.
We could be facing multiple famines of biblical proportions within a short few months. The truth is, we do not have time on our side, so let's act wisely and let's act fast. I do believe that our expertise and our partnerships, we can bring together the teams and the programs necessary to make certain the COVID-19 pandemic